there are certain realities of engineering that have to be adhered to, when you're building and designing a modular home, with roof loads and spans at the marriage, where the sections come together, we call that the marriage line. So certain span limitations there. So it's not as flexible as site building, but you can get really close. And we take a lot of floor plans from customers that came from a site builder, got priced out of the market. They have a floor plan that's just not feasible modular, but we're really good at converting that into the same feel of home as they would have if they were going with that site builder, and being able to do it modular. That's something we can do really well. And a lot of the credit goes to our manufacturers that we partner with. They've got some pretty cool capacity as far as what they can do customization wise. But I wouldn't say a lot of new things. It's just becoming more accepted nowadays to go the modular route. People are becoming more educated. What is a modular home? It's not a mobile home. It's not a trailer. That old mindset is starting to erode away, which is a good thing, because modular construction is, in my opinion, the solution to the labor shortage that we have. People in a factory are very efficient. They're able to build these things in a much shorter time frame with less waste than you can do on site. So I think that's the solution to the labor shortage, is moving more construction into the factory. And you see this already in a lot of multifamily development. There are completely modularized multifamily developments going up all over the country. But they've also been using, especially in the hotel industry, they've been using some modular concepts for quite a while now in the way of like modularized bathroom units. If you think about it, that's your most skilled set of laborers would go into building out the bathroom in a hotel, for instance. So if you can take that off the table, put it into a factory, get a completed unit delivered, and just slot them in one at a time as you're building that thing, you're going to have a much quicker turnaround time on your project, not to mention a better hold on quality control. Chaotic. There were a lot of kids. I'm the oldest of 8 kids, so my parents were busy and a little frazzled, and dinner was loud. We're kind of we're a Greek background as far as lineage, so that kind of made its way into our family culture quite a bit. Lots of arguing and yelling and quickly making up, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
But and you being the oldest, did you did you sort of set the stage for all the other kids, or the other brothers and sisters behind you? Are any of the other ones entrepreneurs or anything like that, or were you the only one that stepped out into that world?
So yeah, my whole family is pretty entrepreneurial. My dad started his own thing when he first emigrated to the U.S. from Australia. He started an electrical contracting company. He's dabbled in real estate. He does modular and manufactured housing, pretty similar to like what I'm doing. He does it down in Florida. And then let's see, my second sibling, he's had his own thing for a while, and he's working with my dad now. Third sibling, she's got her own company.
Wow.
Actually related to the modular industry. Her husband and Laura, then they have a homesteading company, and they do project management and whatnot. They live in Florida as well. I mean, like 2 other of my brothers do their own thing. Yeah, they're all pretty entrepreneurial. The youngest one is still only 17 or 18, so he's not quite launched out on his own yet, but he has that same bent, and I would anticipate him taking it.
That's amazing. Where do you think that comes from? And it's kind of interesting. I used to have my own electrical contracting company too. That was my first company that I started. So and I was in real estate at the same time, and rolled that into tech company, and then now obviously we do the apartments too. But at any rate, so similar backgrounds. But yeah, cool. So your family, obviously that's quite a lineage of entrepreneurs that everyone is going off on their own. Do you feel like there was any type of, catalyst or inspiration, from your parents or from something that you grew up, that this is the better way of doing things rather than, going to college or whatever?
Yeah, probably just seeing my dad throughout his life, basically just making his own way. And he came over here with $300 in his pocket, and has been, fairly successful since then. But he's got a lot of grit, a lot of tenacity. He's pretty over the top when it comes to risk taking. So I think I've kind of tempered that a little bit in my own personality, but I'd say that's where we all kind of get that drive to do something. He went to college. Several of my siblings have gone to college. I went to college and ended up dropping out when I bought my first mobile home park. But that's kind of that was our model growing up, is just figure it out, make it happen, do it yourself. And so that's really transitioned into most of us having something of our own as adults.
Yeah, no, I love it. And your path to get where you are today, did that include college? Did you do that route at all, or did you pretty well just start off on your own right away?
Yeah, I went to college for a few years, pursuing a degree in entrepreneurship and business management. And one of my goals going into college was, by the end, I wanted to get into the mobile home park space. And so I wanted to have a park that I was owned and operating by the end of college. So that about 3 years in, that opportunity came along. And so I bought this community, and it was a tax sale. And so no financials, private investor fronted the money, which was crazy because I wouldn't give a 22-year-old hundreds of thousands of dollars, but he did. And, it was a tough community to run. And I ended up having to drop out just to have enough time to work and generate income to cover the shortfall every month. So that's why I dropped out, but it was probably the best decision I've ever made. The rest is history. So.
Yeah. And I'm sure you probably learned a hell of a lot too in that first jump into that business. What are some of the, I guess, the common pitfalls that people may not necessarily look at or understand when they're looking at acquiring a mobile home park or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest, I wouldn't say shock, but the biggest change in your life rhythm is everything's on you. So when you jump into when you're buying a business, or buying a mobile home park, which is essentially a small business, it's all you. You have to collect in the mobile home park space. You got to collect the money. You've got to manage the tenants. You got to manage the managers if you have one. In my case, I had to fix homes up and spend nights and weekends remodeling homes so that we could increase occupancy and get the cash flow where it needs to be and all that stuff. So that's probably the biggest shocker. When you set out on your own, it's all on you. There's no fallback. You're the guy, or girl, whatever. So, other than that, it's just the day-to-day stuff. And there's a lot of details. I think entrepreneurship is kind of glorified in the fast living, hard hitting. You're buying a business, then you're growing it, then you're exiting, and then you're doing it again or whatever. And it's pretty glorified, but it's the day-to-day is just a lot of nitty-gritty stuff and a lot of grinding. You just have to make it happen, and it's not always fun. It's not always glamorous, and you don't go out and buy your Porsche on day one, right? You've got to drive the clunker until you can afford something that'll get you by a little longer, and maybe eventually you can do that, but that's down the road, and it's definitely not a get rich quick thing. I mean, there are tech companies that rocket into the stratosphere as far as valuations and revenue, but that's the exception. I think we have a lot of what I would call survivorship bias when looking at existing companies. It's like, well, look, it seems so easy. There's so many examples of companies that have just exploded, but those are the ones that made it. You don't necessarily hear about all the ones that didn't, and the owners and the founders that grounded out for years and couldn't make it happen. So I'd say that those two things, the shock of everything's on you, and the reality of, okay, the daily grind is not maybe what you imagined. It's worth it, but it is a grind.
Yeah. And that's somebody else that I was interviewing a few weeks ago basically equated it to, you have to be able to push through the boredom, right? Because things get monotonous, things get tedious. You have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. And you have to be willing to be able to push through that. And that's where a lot of people say, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And they end up giving up. But yeah, so talk a little bit about, obviously you're in the mobile home space. Are you still buying parks at this point, or are you in a different part of the industry now?
So that was kind of what I first started doing. I transitioned into doing new construction modular homes, there is a distinction between a modular home and a manufactured home, but I transitioned into doing that when I started this company in 2015. So I still own a mobile home park, looking to purchase more, but it's kind of like the side hobby at this point, what you do in your spare time. It was a good experience, definitely a good intro, and probably easier than starting a business with employees and whatnot, because you can really bootstrap a lot when you're buying, especially a smaller mobile home park. Like I bought, the first one was 40 some odd spaces. So you can really bootstrap that and do a lot yourself. So I think that was a really good segue into owning an actual business. Well, I shouldn't say an actual business, but owning a business with employees and whatnot. The accounting's more involved in a business like what I'm doing now, for instance. And it was a good starting point for sure.
Yeah. And what got you into the manufactured housing space?
Yeah. So coming out of college, dropping out of college, I kind of focused full time on that first mobile home park. Got it to where it was stabilized and generating income, and I was able to hire people then to fix homes and hire someone to manage it, and had a little more time. I went to work for my dad at that point for a little bit. That seemed to be the thing to do. He had some good stuff going. So I was doing basically running set crews. He was dealing with a lot of used mobile homes at that point. And so I was running a couple crews to deliver and set them and break them down and whatnot. And then it just got to the point where I was ready to either buy into that business and have an ownership stake, or if that wasn't an option, I'd have to just start my own thing. And it was an amicable separation, but basically just talked to my dad and said, look, this is what I want to start. We weren't really doing new homes at the time with his business, so I told him I wanted to start doing new construction, and said, yeah, no problem. You have my blessing, go for it. Yeah. And so that's what I did.
Very cool. So now, did you go and buy a plot of land and put a modular home on it, or what was your path to be able to start that company?
Well, I built a website on, I think, what's Shopify. Okay. Really rudimentary, basic website. Got some photos from some manufacturers that I had hooked up with. Mortgaged my house to be able to show the line of credit available, so I could qualify for these manufacturers to buy their homes. Mm-hmm. And boy, I was posting ads on Craigslist, homes for sale. I taught myself how to do Google AdWords, and basically just tried to get the phone to ring. And those first few months were pretty tough. I mean, especially in this industry, new home construction, there's a really long sales cycle. So you're not taking orders day one, and you're not selling sweatshirts, right? Right. Click on the site, buy a sweatshirt, ship it out, right? Cash flow from day two. There's just this long cycle of financing and ordering a home, waiting for the home, getting permits. And of course, the buying process for a homeowner is longer too. It's a big decision, so they take a long time to think about it and go over floor plans and go over options, and then you've got the financing time frame as well. So those first few months were pretty tough. I mean, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, beating people's doors down, so to speak, trying to get a sale, and then knowing, of course, that sale would not be consummated for several months after that. So it's tough. I mean, I almost gave up a couple times, but I'd say, all right, well, 30 more days and we'll see where we're at. 30 more days, and then we'll pull the plug if we don't have something. So that was really cool. The first sale I got was a lady who was she owned some land up in Michigan, wanted to put a home on it. I think there was an old foundation we had to modify, and she was a great first customer, but it was a risky deal because I again had mortgaged my house to show the line of credit, and in this situation, I had to buy the property essentially from her. She didn't have traditional financing because she couldn't qualify for it. So it was kind of kind of a risk to basically put everything on the line for that first customer, but that's really what got it started. And from there, then things just started picking up steam slowly. And I'd set a goal. Okay, I want to do 5 homes this year. And so we'd get to that goal, halfway through the year, and be like, okay, well now the new goal is 10, And so it was a lot of fun. It still is a lot of fun, but that first 6 months to a year was challenging and definitely stretching, and here we are.
Yeah. So you mentioned real quick there that she had a foundation already there and you had to modify that. Are you guys actually getting involved in, sort of the planning and actually building everything, or are you, basically selling the package? You're kind of like a GC, I guess you could say.
We are a general contractor.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm licensed in Michigan, Indiana. Indiana actually doesn't have a builder's licensure, but we'll take everything from dirt to doorknobs. So we get building permits early on. I help people. Now what I do is more on the financing side of things, helping people through that. I've got a project manager and a couple salespeople and accounting and whatnot, but basically start to finish. So if someone has a bare piece of land or something with the foundation or an old home that needs torn down, we get involved right at the outset, get the building permits, demo the home, put the new foundation in, put in a septic system, whatever, and hand them the keys when we're done.
Yeah. Interesting. So, are you using, is there any like new type of products or new modular home designs or materials or anything like that you're seeing, coming on the market that, is exciting or interesting?
Modular home construction hasn't changed a whole lot, just the same way that a site-built home hasn't really changed. There are some small things, smart thermostats and whatnot, responding to changing energy codes and making homes more efficient. But there's really been no major overhaul in the way that homes have been built for the last several hundred years, right? Modular homes are not like mobile homes in that a mobile home is kind of like a product, right? It comes on wheels and axles. It's got a frame, it's got axles and tires. It's more akin to like an RV, whereas a modular home is more of a method of building than something you just buy, right? So at the end of the project, if you do it right, you're going to have a hard time distinguishing between a site-built home and that modular home. Now there are certain realities of engineering that have to be adhered to, when you're building and designing a modular home. With roof loads and spans at the where the sections come together, we call that the marriage line. So certain span limitations there. So it's not as flexible as site building, but you can get really close. And we take a lot of floor plans from customers that came from a site builder, got priced out of the market. They have a floor plan that's just not feasible modular, but we're really good at converting that into the same feel of home as they would have if they were going with that site builder, and being able to do it modular. That's something we can do really well. And a lot of the credit goes to our manufacturers that we partner with. They've got some pretty cool capacity as far as what they can do customization wise. But I wouldn't say a lot of new things. It's just becoming more accepted nowadays to go the modular route. People are becoming more educated. What is a modular home? It's not a mobile home. It's not a trailer. That old mindset is starting to erode away, which is a good thing, because modular construction is, in my opinion, the solution to the labor shortage that we have. People in a factory are very efficient. They're able to build these things in a much shorter time frame with less waste than you can do on site. So I think that's the solution to the labor shortage is moving more construction into the factory. And you see this already in a lot of multifamily development. There are completely modularized multifamily developments going up all over the country. But they've also been using, especially in the hotel industry, they've been using some modular concepts for quite a while now in the way of like modularized bathroom units. If you think about it, that's your most skilled set of laborers would go into building out the bathroom in a hotel, for instance. So if you can take that off the table, put it into a factory, get a completed unit delivered, and just slot them in one at a time as you're building that thing, you're going to have a much quicker turnaround time on your project, not to mention a better hold on quality control.
Yeah, yeah. So the process that you guys go through, are they basically building the structure, building the building, inside of another building, and then they deconstruct it, sort of piece by piece, truck it up to wherever, the land is, or wherever it's being constructed, and then, they crane it all in and put it back together again? Is that how it works?
Sort of. So you could go with a panelized, method of construction, which is kind of like that. But the ones that we're doing are basically, think of them as like Legos, right?
Okay.
You might have like a typical, just real basic, simple ranch home that's going to have two sections to it, and those sections are going to be 90% complete when they roll out of the factory. So you're going to have a section, maybe a 15 or 16 foot by 50 or 60 foot long section that goes next to another one, and the cabinets are in, the carpet is in, the toilets, the tubs, those are all installed. This home looks almost complete once you set it, right? And then of course you go in after the set, there is some stuff you have to finish up where they connect together. We call that the marriage wall. So you have some marriage wall finish, you've got, and a lot of times with our customers, they want components that the manufacturer might not offer, like a certain stone for their countertop, or a certain style of LVP flooring or hardwood flooring or whatever. And so we'll go in after the fact, we'll just order the unit, without those components, and we'll go in after the fact and then finish it out however they want it. So they're coming a lot more complete than it's not like a flat pack idea where you bring a flatbed trailer in and take off the walls one at a time. That is a good way of doing things, and that's the way a lot of builders are going that way as well, with panelized walls and whatnot, eliminating the time and material waste and variable of having a framing crew on site. For instance, their framing crew is just putting together pieces. That's a good way to do it. Modular construction takes that even a step further, and you've got sections that are complete effectively when they arrive. You set them with a crane. Each one will weigh 30 to 50,000 pounds. So you set them with a pretty sizable crane, and you go in and finish it out. Sometimes you have to put in the HVAC system. Obviously, you got to plumb underneath the home, run all your drain lines together and whatnot. But it's a lot more complete than like the panelized idea.
Yep. So now when you build these, I'm just picturing, essentially a house that's pulling out of the home, that's, set on a trailer, which obviously is then lifted off. There's different things like, power wires and lines and telephone lines and all of that going over the roads. Do you guys have to take that into consideration and somehow work that into the logistics of getting that unit from the factory to wherever it's going to ultimately be set?
Yeah, in some ways. All these various manufacturers, they know the restrictions as far as height for transport and whatnot. So they're going to build them to a certain height and no more to be able to fit under pretty much anything. Now, you do have to assess the site beforehand to make sure you can get it back there. If you have a really long home and you're going on a really tight lot, maybe it's a lake. We do a lot of lake lots. So we get into this sometimes where you'll have a really difficult access, a winding, narrow road with lots of houses crammed in there. So you got to figure out, okay, can we get a crane in here and then bring in each section and set it, Most of the time we can do it. In fact, I don't think we've ever pulled out of a job or walked away from something because we couldn't access the site. That's feasible. Yeah, if you were trying to set something on the side of a mountain and there was just no access for cranes or trucks, then yeah, that would preclude you from doing modular. But most of the time on most building sites, you're not going to have an issue getting the sections there and setting them up.
Is helicoptering ever an issue or an option?
It has been done before, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I saw a video the other day, I think, of a helicopter set with a modular home, and it was one of those deals where it's like on the side of a mountain. So yeah, that is feasible. I don't know if that's necessarily practical.
Right.
But maybe if you had really high labor costs and material costs, then you'd have to go that route, or you could go that route and come out ahead. But that's not common.
Yeah. Do you have any type of a comparison what the costs are building modular as opposed to, regular on-site building? Is there a cost comparison to that?
For sure. It's going to vary by region. We're located in Indiana. A lot of our builds are in Michigan. And the reason for that is that there are a lot of high-end builders left in Michigan. After 2008, a lot of the lower end and kind of middle of the road builders were out of business. And so all the higher end ones stuck around, and they're the ones building now. So a lot of times we can greatly undercut a site builder in Michigan with a modular product, especially because it's built in Indiana, where we have easier regulation and lower weight labor costs. Materials are about the same, but yeah, you're probably, for a home in Michigan, you could be 15, sometimes 30 or 40% less. It really depends on the builder that this customer is trying, comparing you against. But we've gotten quotes from site builders for a similar home that are just out of this world more expensive than what we can do it for. And then of course there are some builders that are running a tight ship, and they can stick build something for only 10 or 15% more, but it would average, I'd say, between 10 and 30% less than a site built home, with regional variation.
Yeah. And have you been affected by the supply chain issues and obviously like wood pricing and all of that, which has come back down again? Did that impact you guys?
Absolutely, yeah. The biggest squeeze right now is just availability of getting a modular unit built and ready to set. A lot of our manufacturers are out 12 months on their production. So if I ordered a home today, I wouldn't get it till this time next year. That poses a challenge then with financing. For instance, a lot of construction loans are termed at like 9 months max, maybe 12. And that's the whole term of the loan. So they want you to have the thing done and hand the keys over in that time period. Well, if I'm not even getting a home for 9 or 12 months, but I still need to close out loans so I can give a deposit to the factory, you're in a bit of a pickle. I don't think the lenders have really figured this out yet. And I think they're going to have a lot of builds that are way over time frame, and they're going to have to restructure their financing and figure it out. I've warned a few of them, like, look, this is coming. You need to be ready for this. They just seem to be driving on, writing loans, closing loans. A few of them have said, okay, well, let's postpone the closing, which is fine as long as the buyer can shift their down payment from the lender over to us. Instead of putting it down on the construction loan, they just give us cash to get the home ordered. Then we can delay the closing. The lender can use that cash as effectively as their down payment. But if the buyer doesn't have any cash to work with, then that's not even an option. So we have seen some resistance in that regard from buyers not having the cash, wanting to use a zero down, USDA, FHA, VA loan, whatever. But we can't necessarily do that because we need money to get this home ordered. So it's a bit of a challenge right now. Of course, materials all over the board as far as pricing. Lots of increases. I mean, the same home this time last year would have, on an average ranch home could cost you $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 less last year than it does today. That's starting to come down a little bit, but it's pretty unfortunate because that's one of the main benefits of modular construction is you can lock your price in. So not every manufacturer will lock it in. Champion doesn't lock it in, which is a challenge because you've got a construction loan closed, you've got a foundation in the ground, and then they give you a new invoice. Oh, here's your new price, and it's $10,000 more or whatever. Well, where's that money coming from? It either comes out of the builder's pocket or the buyer walks away. But you've already got a foundation in the ground. So what do you do? So it's a challenge. But I'd say the biggest one right now is just supply constraints, on the finished product. And of course, the manufacturers are dealing with their own issues as far as some lumber shortages, but tubs and showers and toilets and adhesives and fasteners, and they're on allotment for a lot of the materials that they use. So I've heard of manufacturers pulling homes off the line, putting them in the lot, and then finishing the cabinets, for instance, in the lot once they get the cabinet shipment in or whatever. So there's been a lot of disruption in the supply chain as everyone has felt too. And we're not exempt from that, but we're getting along. I mean, it's still working out. There's some delays, but it's really mostly just a time thing.
And do you have any insight into, I mean, obviously there's the delay in all of the material and all of that, but any insights into why they would have a 12-month lead time on building a home at all? I mean, is it all based on, we're not going to have enough tubs to be able to do your home?
Not so much. No, it's really driven by demand. I mean, there's huge demand for new housing right now. Interest rates have been low for so long, driving that demand for better or for worse. That's a whole nother conversation, but I would say mainly just due to order flow. I mean, they have a lot of people trying to build homes, even with the elevated, lumber costs. Now, as those start to come down, if interest rates can stay low, I see it getting worse.
Yeah,
I see manufacturers being 18 or 24 months out, because you already had this perfect storm of low interest rates and low inventory on housing. It's only going to get worse if interest rates stay low and material price come down, because people were still building even with crazy material surcharges. The manufacturers will add, they add their base price and they add a surcharge for lumber based on whatever it's doing that month typically. Even at those elevated levels, people were still signing contracts and ordering homes. So I anticipate sales to continue to go up from this point, which is just going to stretch that lead time out. So that's another big problem coming down the pipeline, which I'm trying to solve by getting into manufacturing myself. But that only solves it for me. Nationwide, there's still this big problem of too few manufacturers trying to build too many homes. So
yeah, interesting. And you're obviously seeing a big uptick in the amount of people that want to build in this way, like you mentioned earlier. So so it sounds like the market is definitely there and interest is there.
For sure.
Just a matter of putting all the resources together. So is that something in your path that you're looking to get your own factory going, your own property?
It's still pretty it's in the infant stage, but that I could see as a very very feasible venture in the foreseeable future. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Joel, this has been really interesting learning about the modular home industry and how and actually before we close this, you mentioned before about the multifamily application of modular homes, and that would that work the same way where let's say we're doing a multi-story type building? Is it basically you're building boxes that would stack on top of each other? Is that how that would essentially work? Or
yes, yes, you can. Yeah, I mean it's been done. It is being done. If you're just doing wood frame construction, you're going to be limited on the height that you can go.
Right. Yep.
But you can go 3 stories, 4 stories with a modular building, no problem. If you're going to go taller than that, you have to get some steel structure involved. But yeah, it's definitely feasible, and people do it. And I have a lot of inquiries in that regard, I would say, but not a lot of people pulling the trigger. I think it's still gaining acceptance. And the other part is, when you're a big developer, you're beating up subs, getting stuff for as absolute cheap as you can.
Yeah.
Sometimes the additional costs of crane and the set crew and whatnot can erode some of the savings you would get from modular construction on the multifamily, multi-story side of things. But if you're going flat duplexes, single family, a bunch of them grouped together, absolutely, modular is viable for you. Not that it's not for multi-story, but a lot of the manufacturers that do multi-story modular, they know the market. So they're not pricing themselves to be the same per square foot as just a residential build, right? They know the commercial market, so they're going to price themselves accordingly. Now they'll still try to stay, 10% maybe lower than the site built cost, but a lot of developers, they don't necessarily, I think, see that as much of an incentive or as enough of an incentive to get into this new way of doing things. It's a whole new process for them, new ways of bringing your subs in, new financing structures and timing of your financing payout and whatnot. So I don't think that the cost savings that the manufacturers are letting people have on that side of things is enough to really incentivize a lot of developers to, take the plunge and learn the new system. But if they were to do that, you would see a cost benefit for sure. It's just people are usually stuck in their ways, and it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. No, I love it. Joel, this has been really interesting. If people want to learn more about you or your company, your products, what would be the best way to reach out and get in touch?
Yeah, check us out online, nextmodular.com. We've got a great website, a lot of homes on there you can browse. We have pricing on our website, which is not very common in this industry. We give you a good idea of what this home's going to cost. And then if you want to do all the other stuff, the foundation, the septic, we've got estimates on that for this region, obviously, but it'll give you a good idea of your overall price point to build a new home. So I would check us out there. You can call us. The website's got our number on it, email, whatever you want to do.
Love it. I love it. Joel, this is fantastic. And congratulations on all the success in the building world, and look forward to seeing what else you build in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.